I'd been going to these Bible studies, and I saw an ordinary layman, insurance salesman, leading these Bible studies and seeing MDs, PhDs, engineers, dentists come to Christ with just the Word of God. And I didn't have a lot of money. $150 a month was my salary. $125 was rent. So Joanne and I didn't have a lot of social life. But my spiritual father would bring a babysitter over every week, take us to an evangelistic home Bible study, take us home, pay the babysitter, and take her home. That was our night out each week. And so I saw all these people coming to Christ through evangelistic home Bible studies. So I had good training. So when we came to Menominee, we started having Bible studies in our home immediately in 1964. I'd write out questions: who, what, where, when, why, and how. Take a topic like peace. How do we know we can have peace? What hinders us from having peace? Where does peace come from? And then write verses underneath that. Go around, ask each one to read verses. What does that say to you? It's amazing how the Word of God just convicted me. It wasn't me. And by 1967, we had too big a group to fit in our home. So we rented the old Baptist church on South Broadway, called a pastor. And that's when the Alliance Church started, September 17, 1967. And the first Sunday we met, he put a note in the bulletin: we are temporarily meeting at this address on South Broadway until we build next spring. So everybody knew we were not just testing the waters. I bought this farm all the way from the highway to the lake. And so I donated that land for the first church. When the church started, Joanne and I were the janitors. We'd go over Saturday night and sweep the cement floor and put up chairs and so forth and get things ready for Sunday. And she played the piano and she sang, and I led the service, and we both taught Sunday school. And so, for the first 2 years, we were never gone on a weekend.
When I was Gary Benedict's secretary, I was the first secretary the church had. So I'm not sure what they did before that. I guess the pastor just did everything himself. And so at the original church building, there was no extra office for a secretary, so I just had a desk and a typewriter out, and phone, I guess, out in the foyer on the other side of the plant stand.
But the church was smaller, and so the secretary knew all the people in the church, so she would get calls at random. Can you tell me where Wally's working today? Can you tell me where this person is? And he just knew all the people, and so it's for field and probably secretary now.
We just felt love.
Yeah.
That was incredible. It was really the first time I had experienced what the church was supposed to be all about, and we really felt the love.
And it was a wonderful church, but we outgrew it. Pastor Gary Benedict said, people will put up with this if they know that something better is coming, but they won't put up with this forever. Because when he came, the church outgrew it. There were people filling the entry. We'd have chairs set up, and so we started looking and thinking about building right away.
The church really started growing. There were a lot of evangelism. Again, I think Roger and Joanne were spearheading it, but a lot of new believers, and they sort of outgrew their church. And so in the time we were in Wausau, they actually moved into the present building. Wasn't quite it's been added on to several times since then, but they were in the new building. Gary Benedict was the pastor. Lots of new Christians in the congregation. It was a very exciting time.
I came to Stout as a freshman in 1968. I was 18 years old. I met some guys at Stout that had played tennis. I started playing tennis with Roger.
I was never any good, but started playing tennis with him, and he started coming over to our house, and I had the privilege of leading him to Christ.
Just really had a deep love for people. And when I was around them, it wasn't just about tennis, it was about me, how I was doing, how my life was going. So he always seemed to have a sincere concern for me, and I think that was a strong connection that we made early on. My marriage is falling apart. I thought if I could be a coach and a teacher, I'd be happy, and I was coaching the wrestling team, and I was teaching at Stout, and there was a void, there was an emptiness, and so I prayed and I asked God to help me with that. And so when I left the church, I felt a real need to go see Roger. And so I rode my bicycle to Roger's house, and I shared with him that I was struggling personally, and that I really felt I needed something in my life. And he said, I know exactly what you need. In 1973, I believe, I made a personal commitment as a result of being in a Bible study with Roger. It was 1981 that the school started, and I was at Stout, teaching full-time at Stout, but I was involved in teaching Sunday school, adult Sunday school and stuff. And I believe I was on the board at that time, and Jim and I talked, and they needed leadership for the school. So a number of people applied for the job, but I got hired as the first principal of the school back in the fall of 1981. I think we started with 20-some kids, 23 kids, K3 or K2, I can't recall. And then we grew it from that point from 1981 to 86 when I left to about 95 kids, K6.
It was a really good school in terms of the education and the level and the expectations.
But as far as the academics, very traditional curriculum, but excellent. These kids that came out of this school were well founded in, expressing the language and expressing themselves and this kind of thing, and they tended to do very well.
And so the numbers started to come down, and we don't have the school now. So for a season, would you say 15, 20 years or something?
Yeah, it was really good.
It was really good. It served our family very, very well. It's nothing like having your kids come home in kindergarten and recite the Bible verse that they learned that day or that week or whatever it was. It was just a wonderful experience for our family.
That was between Gary Benedict and Rich Brown. We did a pastor search, and it took a while to find the person we were really looking for. And a lot of places that could be difficult, but for us it wasn't, because we had a lot of good leadership in place, and we actually grew during that. It was 15 months, and we actually grew and took in new members. I love teaching, and it wasn't a threat for me at all. We both just grew in a very accelerated fashion. So the difficult years we've been through for those pastors were really helpful to the church, because we solidified who we were. And so when Jack and Diana arrived, we knew what we wanted to be as a church. And he came alongside and got us there.
Jack and Diana come, and I remember thinking, oh man, Jack Stimmel, this guy is so nice. He's so gentle. He's so gentle-mannered. This church will eat him alive. And I love this church, but I just knew the strong personalities here. Well, then he got up and he shared his testimony. He shared his life story, and I thought, oh wow, I had this guy all wrong. He can handle us. And I think Jack and Diana, they're soft-spoken but very strong-handed pastoring. I mean, very strong people, but in a very gentle way that I think they were just perfect.
Just shortly before he resigned, we had hired on staff our present pastor, Doug Stolhand. And that brings us to the current.
I look back at my life and I think of what life would have been without meeting Roger and having him lead me to Christ, having him invest his life in my life. And so there's a deep, deep gratitude. And when I come to worship on Sunday mornings, I do this a lot. And my daughter says, Dad, you're leaking. So I leak a lot. But I leak out of a sense of appreciation for God's goodness, God's presence, God's people, God's plan, and that I could be part of it.